Show starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Blast off. This is the Purpose Pod. All right, I'm sorry. Just the theatrics is terrible. God. All right, so this is the Purpose Pod. Yeah. So if you're excited, put your hands in the air. All right, just put them down. I can't see. But yeah, so this is the Purpose Pod. We're driving you forward with power and faith. I am about to bring on someone that is awesome and amazing. And he is just, I mean, if you think about character and personality and you think about men and you put it in Ralph, you get the same thing. So it's Ralph Henderson. I'm going to bring him on right now. Ralph, what's going on, Ralph?
Good afternoon, Alan. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm sorry for the dramatic entrance. It's just
that's okay. I like big entrances, right?
Yeah, I get a little excitement in me, and then it just goes from there. So you know, it's on. But yes, Mr. Ralph Henderson, the president of OmniChannel Productions, is sitting right here with us today. So welcome to the Purpose Pod, Ralph. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. I really appreciate you having me here.
Yeah, no problem. I am experiencing some issues with our Facebook Live. It doesn't look like our picture is coming up good for them over here. Oh, there it is. Okay, cool. So yes, Mr. Ralph Henderson and I are talking about hope today. And during COVID-19, everyone needs hope. So how have you managed to adapt to COVID-19 and what it's doing to our country? So like your home business is probably, taking a shift and turn. So how have you adapted to that?
Well, the way I've adapted to it, and it's been with the help of friends and mentors and coaches, is to really take advantage of what's been given to us, which is really a big pause. Mm-hmm. And I don't want your audience to think that I'm looking at anything from a naive or Pollyanna perspective. I want your audience to know I am a business owner. Yeah. I understand revenue. I understand cash flow. I understand profit. It's really important for my business for things to be up and running. Everything I do is live, and therefore right now, that has all come to a grinding halt. So mm-hmm. I want everybody to know that everything that I say in this interview is said with that knowledge and that business owner perspective. But I also want everybody to know that I want them to have hope that they are going to come out of this. Mm-hmm. Actually, if they'll do it right, they'll come out of this better than they went into it. And before anybody thinks that's a flippant statement, let me just tell you, there are roughly 5 stages to going through a business crisis. Mm-hmm. And normally we go through the shock of getting into the crisis, and then we go into the paddle mode or the desperation of what we're going to do about it. Yeah. And then we typically start to turn the corner and try to figure out what's going on, and we think about what's happening. And then we get into this stage of doing something about coming out of it and getting everything ready. And then ultimately we end up then being productive. And every time we've gone into a business crisis in this country, if we will just pay attention to what's going on, get this now, we will actually come out of it better than we went into it.
Yeah. And that might sound crazy to some, like you were saying, like you're not saying like, hey, we don't see what's happening to people who may be losing their lives or people losing their family members. But for those who, at the end of the day, we have to get through it. We have to go through this. So where are you going to be when you come out of this? And you're taking your time to be optimal with the things that you're in charge of, your business, your production team. So that's awesome. So you're staying busy. You didn't take a setback. You're setting yourself up for coming out of here swinging, right?
Well, it's retooling and redirecting, right? I mean, Look, we can't control a lot of what's going on, mm-hmm. but what we can control is how we think about it.
Yeah.
Now give that a thought. So we can control how we think about it. So if that's true, what we should be doing is putting things into our mind that allow us to come out stronger, better, faster. And what I mean by that, everybody hears the euphemism, you are what you eat, right? I mean, that's something everybody's heard. Well, you know what? The same thing is true for your mind, right? So whatever you put into your mind is also who you become. And that's why we have to be really careful about what we're watching on television and how long we're watching it, what we're watching on the internet and how long we're watching it. I mean, right now is a good time to read and watch things that put joy and hope and encouragement into your mind, because look, you are who you are by the daily obedience and consistency of what you do. So if you will daily, obediently, and consistently read encouraging things, watch inspiring things, you will ultimately become that person.
Wow. So you're saying like we can be intentional about what we watch, what we read, and what we listen to, and that in which we are intentional about doing can make us better and make us the person that we desire to be. And that's just amazing. So how are you utilizing that are you cutting back on TV? Are you reading more books? Like, how are you setting yourself up for success?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And I have been very intentional about it. And as you know, I own a production company. I primarily work in the supply chain space, right? So I work in trade shows and conferences and summits, all live stuff, all at high levels.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, a couple of years ago, I got engaged with the Carolina Panthers, and I started working with them in their entertainment division. Well, what I found was people get the sports analogies really quick. And so to answer your question, what I would like to say is the hope that we have when our team is playing a game, whether they are winning or losing, depending on some of the parameters, obviously, of the game, is the same hope we can give ourselves, right? I mean, we are not by any stretch of the imagination in the fourth quarter of this game. We are not by any stretch of the imagination down a lot in this game. We're not. I mean, I know some people might feel like we are, but we're not. And so what I would say is the hope I have for that game to win is the same hope. So now let me help answer your question. So what do those folks on that team do in order to give me more hope? Well, they practice more, they train more, they study more. So I thought to myself, well, if we're going through this time of having the opportunity to have this daily, obedient, consistent activity that we can do, why don't I do the same thing? So what I've done is I've gotten with some people and done some research and said, all right, if I want to come out of this more joyful, more hopeful, and more prosperous than I went into it, what books do I need to read? What training do I need to do? What things do I need to meditate on? And so I started to put together a program that I do on a daily basis that allows me to do that, so that over time, as we're going through this thing, I'm getting more hope, more joy, more strength, more ability. So you can see now, as we come out of this, I'm going to put myself into a position where I can do even more than I could have when we were coming into it, that I would have never given the time to if this wouldn't have happened, because I simply wouldn't have prioritized it.
Yeah. And I love your analogy too. And because what can the Panthers do? Let's just use the Panthers. What can the Panthers do in this game right now? And we're in the second quarter, and we're about to go into halftime, and it looks like we're down. And the crowd, what can we do to get the audience to believe that we're going to make a comeback? And that's, like you said, they got to practice more. When they got to practice, they got to get better. They got to do their assignments. They have to be at their positions and do what they're paid to do, right? So what is it that we are paid to do, as professions, and you speak of being at the trade shows and and you're at a higher level where you're saying like you're at these trade shows where it's like it's live and like everything could fall or everything could rise at one instant, you know. So the expectations are high for you. How do you manage to keep your hope, you know, intact while carrying that?
Well, you know, again, it's a wonderful question, and the way I keep my hope is because in my mind, I don't allow myself any other option. So in my mind, I'm saying, look, I'm winning this game. You know, if it's the second quarter and we're down by a couple of scores and we go into that locker room, I'm telling that room right now, we are not losing this game. Okay.
Right.
So we're going to take that training we've done. We're going to take all that learning that we've had, and we're going to put it with that passion that we know we have for whatever business we're in. And we're going to come out and we're going to win this thing. And so that is the encouragement I would give everybody that's watching this right now, is just do what you need to do for yourself to learn and to practice and to train in whatever it is you want to do. A really good question a mentor of mine asked me a long time ago that I've lived by is, think about who you want to become, and think about when you want to become that person, and then think about what you need to do, see, smell, memorize, meditate, read, and hear in order to become that person, and then start doing those things every day.
Yeah. And it makes it possible, right? Because we, you know, a lot of times we have this big goal and dream. And I'm pretty sure before you got started in your industry, or even before you created your OmniChannel Productions, you know, it was just a thought or a dream or a vision at first. So you created your plan, and that gave you hope. And I think planning gives us hope. Like if you have no plan, I feel like you can't have hope, you know, because it seems impossible at that point in time, right?
That's a really good point. And you know, it just dawned on me that I created OmniChannel Productions in the last business crisis that we were in, which was the financial crisis in 08 and 09. I launched OmniChannel Productions at the beginning of 2009, right at the height of that business crisis.
Wow.
And the reason I got through it was because I had trained and I had learned and I had fought and I had prepared, to your point, to come into the market starting out. Now, I didn't realize that we were going to be in a financial crisis and that there wasn't going to be anything going on for 18 or 20 months, but that was the case. But I couldn't let it stop me, Alan. I said, look, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to keep marching forward. And it was because of that obviously I was able to get through that. And I, you know, again, I would just say to everybody who's watching this, whether you're a W-2, a 1099, a business owner, or anything in between, you know, we are going to get out of this. I mean, this is going to get behind us. And you now have an opportunity to think about, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? Who do you want to become? And then start thinking about, and you don't have to do this on your own. There are resources out there. And, you know, and I know they didn't expect me to give them a plug, but for the small businesses out there, you know, there's the Small Business Technical and Development Center. That's SBTDC, Small Business Technical and Development Center. They are at the University of North Carolina at Charlotte, and they have tons of resources for small businesses. There are many other people that are out there to help you. So please don't feel like you have to do this by yourself. You don't. But I would implore you to do it, to think about it, because here's what's going to happen. We're going to get through this. We're going to get out of it. We're going to go through that business crisis. There are a lot of people who are going to do really well. And then there are the other people who are going to turn around and go, man, I wish I would have just done this while that was going on.
Exactly.
So good news. You still can.
Right. you still have time. And
you still have time.
And hopefully we do things the right way so that there's not another crisis after, you know, we go back to normal, you know, whatever. No, I don't think there is a go back to normal after this.
Well, there won't be. There won't be, Alex. So the Army Wartime College came out with a study back in the late 80s. Your audience can look this up too. It's called VUCA, VUCA. It stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And what it primarily says is we're always going to go through these cycles. I mean, look, I am in my 50s, and just in my lifetime, I have seen the recession of the late 80s, early 90s. I've seen the dot-com bust. I've seen 9/11. I've seen the financial housing, and I've now seen COVID-19. And that's only with somebody who's lived for 5 decades. So the point I'm making here isn't whether or not we're going to go through another business crisis. It's simply when we're going to go through another business crisis. But to your point, what we have to do is we have to plan, we have to prepare. And then when we're in them, we have to understand what we need to do so that when we come out of it, we're in better shape.
I love what you're saying, Ralph. I love what you're saying, brother, because you know, and so these 5 decades of going through life, because that's what it is, right? Is we don't know what can happen. You know, life is going to happen, but what you do before and during is going to dictate how you come out of it. You know, so
That's right.
that's the main thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just like going back to the sports analogy. I mean, what's really funny, Alan, and this is true in business too.
Yeah.
It never ceases to amaze me how much we admire these teams who come from way behind and win. I mean, think about it. If you're watching a football game and a team comes out and they just start scoring and continue to score and the other team doesn't score anything, you consider that one of the most boring games on the planet. Right. Now, the team who won's like, wait a second, we did really well. We scored a lot of points. But if you watch a football game where a team gets way behind and they inch their way back, and then somehow dramatically at the end of that game, I'm thinking now of the Steelers in that Super Bowl when they were playing Arizona, and the receiver caught the ball with like less than 20 seconds left to go in the game, and he touched his 2 toes down in the end zone, and they won the game. I mean, that is considered one of the best Super Bowls on record. And the only reason is because of the emotion we went through of them being behind and then coming out on top. So what I'm saying, and look, I'm saying this to myself, is why can't that be me? I mean, right now, the COVID-19 has stopped my business altogether. And right now, I'm struggling to have any sort of business whatsoever. So what could I? So should I fold up? Should I say, okay, I've lost the game, or should I say, what do I need to do in order to win this game so that I come out better? And you know what? If I'll do that, and somebody knows that, they're going to turn around and look back on that story. And whether I like it or not, or whether they like it or not, they're actually going to think more of that story because of COVID-19. Now, if I did really well, if I ended up at the same place without COVID-19, they would just say, oh, that's nice. He's a good business guy. But if I do it with the virus and I come out of it, now all of a sudden it's like, wow, that was a big deal, man. No, it wasn't.
Come on, man. Come on, Ralph. That's what I'm talking about.
It's just, and it's, and we're so interesting as creatures, right? On how philosophically and physiologically and chemically we react to things, right? So, when something happens to us, we have a choice on how we react to that. And I think that's where we are right now is, as business owners, as employees, as people in this country, we right now have a choice on how we're going to react to this. And don't get me wrong, like I said, I know it's hard. I have no business going on right now. And there are people out there that are out of work to no fault of their own. So I'm not minimizing how difficult this is. But what I am saying is embrace that, understand that, and then do what you need to do in order to get to where it is you want to get. And if you don't know what that is, it was worth you watching this call just to hear this. Find out who you want to become when we come out of this.
Find out.
If you hear nothing else, just hear that.
Yeah. And that's a good word right there. Find out who you want to become when you come out of this. Like, who do you want to become? And I think a lot of people wrestle with that because they've been so used to working for the past years at a 9-to-5 and doing something for other people, maybe, and they don't know who they are. They've been wrapped up in societal jobs and they don't know who they are, you know, and they lost. Maybe they had a dream like you. Maybe they wanted to start their own production company and they didn't do it. So, you know, and they didn't take the time to plan. So now they could see you, you know, and you're saying, hey, you know what? I started my dream. And right now my dream is going through a crisis, you know, but I'm not backing down from this fight. And I love your analogy of the football thing again, man. And I just get hyped because I love the underdogs in the football game. Like, I don't hey, look, Ralph, I don't even have a team per se. You know, I go with the Panthers. You know, my dad loves the Panthers. My family loves the Panthers and stuff, but I don't have a team. So whenever I'm watching a game, I always go for the underdog. Like, it's just automatic. It's just something God put inside of me. Go for the underdog, right? And what you said, your analogy of that the last 20 seconds of a game. Think about it. Like, let's say Ralph is New England Patriots and I'm Carolina Panthers, or you want to reverse it, you can. But I'll be Carolina Panthers today, and Ralph is up by 3 points, right? And there's 2 seconds left in the game. I have 50 yards to go. It seems impossible. It seems like I would never get to do it. And this is the part of hope that I love in what you were talking about, because the fans of the losing team, the team that's losing at that point, the Panthers, they're excited. They're like, no, anything's possible. And they're grabbing, anything's possible. You know, they're going crazy, right? And the Panthers team, the players, I'm pretty sure they're anticipating a victory because they believe that their hard work that they put in during the crisis, you know, before the crisis, the hard work that they put in before they were in this situation, they know that they are prepared for this crisis, right? And so all in all, I score and I win. But at the end of the day, you have to look at your life from that perspective. And I love what you said, Ralph, man. I'm starting thinking about it.
It's never give up, right? I mean, Winston Churchill said that even back during World War II. You know, he said, never, never, never give up. And that was his entire speech, was just never give up. Because that's really sometimes what it comes down to. We overcomplicate it. And you know, and the reason we do that most of the time subconsciously is because we don't want to blame ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very, very not want to take the blame for something. So if I complicate something, I can blame the complication. Where if I make it really easy, like, hey, just don't give up, then, you know, I don't have anybody else to blame but me, right? And right. And so the other thing I would say to the people who are watching and listening is transformation is key, right? So think about the transformation. Now, before you get lost in that, just remember there is a way to transform, and we've already talked about it. So if somebody ever wants to transform, the way they do that is they read, they listen, they memorize, they hear, and they meditate. Those are the 5 things you do on who and whatever it is you want to become. So let's say you want to become a business owner, or you want to become the president of the company, or you simply just want to become the best person at whatever position you are. What you need to do is you need to read information on that. You need to hear information on that. You need to see information. You need to memorize information, and you need to meditate on that information. And if you will do that every day, now it depends on how badly you want it, on how often you'll do it, right? If you really want it, you know, you'll start out small, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, but then eventually, because you love it so much, you'll start reading more, you'll start hearing more, you'll start watching more, you'll start memorizing more, and you'll start meditating more. And I got to tell you, it won't be uncommon for you to get into the 2 and 3 hours of doing all that because of how much you're into it. The good news is right now, you have the time to do that. So think about if you did that every day for the next 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, and you see where this is going, right? So now what happens is over time, it's like you start to become whatever it is that you are transforming into.
Wow.
And look, I'm not trying to speak at anybody.
Right.
The whole time I'm saying this, I'm actually saying it to myself.
I know what you mean.
Because that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. So and that's awesome that I love that, because everything that you're saying and everything that I say, like, I want to incorporate that in my life, because I want to be a better person and a better individual, a better Alan. And there's no one else who could be a better Alan but me. So why not do my part? And I think I love what you said about people not being willing to take that responsibility. So if you're giving me these 5 steps and these 5 things that I can incorporate in my life for the rest of my life to become who I want to become, it's my responsibility to do it. And that's where people start running away, because you start saying, hey, you want to start OmniChannel Productions? Well, this is what you have to do. And they're like, wait, I thought you were going to start it for me. No, you have to start it. Yeah. So
yeah, I gotta tell you, it is commitment. When I put the business plan together for this, I remember thinking that it was going to be a 2-year plan. And I remember talking to people about that. And I remember everybody agreeing with that. And, yeah, that's good, until I got to my financial advisor.
Yeah.
And I presented all of this to my financial advisor, and he said, I love everything you're doing here with one exception. I said, what's that? He said, you're never going to accomplish that in 2 years. Wow. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, oh, yeah, that'll take 5 years. He says, there's no way this business gets off the ground in less than 5 years. Well, then what I had to do was go back and figure out how financially I was going to be able to handle that, and be able to have a 5-year plan. Now, here's what's really cool about what he did for me. The first thing is, remember, as soon as I started the business, we were in a financial crisis in this country. So think about it. For the first 20 months, the entire country was down. If I only had the resources for 2 years, how successful would I have been? I would not have been successful. So it was because of him I had the resources and the bandwidth and the ability to know I had 3 more years to go. And it was almost to the year that my business started to pick up in 2014. And it really, so the point I'm trying to make here to the people that are listening is, yes, of course, you can start today on whoever it is you want to become, but don't underestimate the commitment you're going to need. Now, you're going to like this analogy because you're a man of faith.
Yeah.
One of the things I say all the time to people, regardless of their spiritual belief, is in order for you to do anything that's different than what you're going to do now, you have to do one thing. And that one thing is called change. Right. And the reason people don't like to change is because there's 4 levels to change. There's awareness of needing to change, there's resistance to change, there's exploration of change, and there's finally acceptance of change. And until you can get through those 4 levels, you're never going to change. But what you're going to need in order to go through those 4 levels is courage. And usually when I'm talking to an audience, I'll ask them, what does courage mean? And most people kind of get the idea of courage. They say, it's, doing the right thing, being strong, being convicted. And that's true. All of those things are true. Courage is doing what's right in your heart when you know it's right. And we all have that design in us to know what's right. So doing what's right, even if it's going to be challenging, even if it's going to be hard, you have to have the courage to do that. But then what I'll ask the audience is I'll say, okay, what's the opposite of courage? And typically the audience will go, oh, well, that's easy. That's being a coward. That's being afraid. And I'm like, yeah, that's okay. But the reality of the opposite of courage is conformity.
Conformity.
So, right? So in order for us to change, so here's my alliteration with the C's, right? So in order for us to change, we have to have courage. And in order for us to courage, we have to break through the conformity of what we're doing, right? And here's what's funny now. Your audience needs to hear this. What's funny is right now, outside of our own devices, we have been ripped free of the conformity that we were in 6 weeks ago. Now,
Right.
here's what's fun. We are in our minds right now fighting as hard as we can. Get this, to go back to the conformity,
Right.
right? We should not be doing that.
Should not be
Right
doing
now
that.
is the best time to have the courage to go to the change.
Yeah.
Because
Exactly.
you've now been given that opportunity where you wouldn't have taken it
Mhm.
before. You would have just conformed. You would have kept going to work every day, all day, and not been
Right.
happy. You would have
Mhm.
kept working for people you didn't necessarily like. You would have kept doing things that you would, in your mind, think, man, if I could just do something different, I would. Well,
Yeah.
guess what? You get that opportunity now. And so I
Amen.
would just say to the people listening, think about changing, think
Mhm.
about having the courage to change, and then just think about not wanting to go back to the conformity of where you were.
Yeah. And so for you, would that how does that look for you? Like are you planning, like what are you planning to do in this season, and what does your next season look like?
Yeah, and look, this is again, I am speaking to myself,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
So, and this is just as difficult, just as challenging, just as hard for me. So
Mhm.
right now, what I am doing is I am getting ready to go into the throes of producing two virtual events, two virtual productions,
Mhm.
one in my industry and one outside of my industry. But these are two virtual productions where everything's going to be done online, but we're still going to have presenters, we're still going to have sponsors, we're still going to have attendees. All those things that I do live in executive forums and summits, where I come together at a university or a resort or some venue. I'm
Mhm.
going to do all of that virtually. And I've not ever done that as a producer. I've
Yeah.
never produced anything virtual, but I'm getting ready to do those. And what I'm uncovering is there's some similarities and
Mhm.
there's some really big differences.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm taking my own advice and I'm saying, look, if I'm going to get through this better than I was before, then I'm going to learn how to do something I didn't know how to do before,
Mhm.
even if that demand goes down or away when we come out of this and people want
Right.
to get back together again, I will
Mhm.
still have benefited by learning how to do it. And to be honest with you,
Yep.
I think regardless of what happens, we're still going to continue to do things virtually. Maybe not as much after this is all over, but we'll
Yeah.
still do them. And knowing how to do that, I believe will only benefit me, even if nothing else, just
Yeah.
to give my prospects and clients the option of doing it.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm pretty sure that you learning, or you adapting and learning and not conforming to what was expected before, you're doing something new to get new results, and that's amazing. And I'm pretty sure that whenever things do go back to the societal norm, that it does go back, or I don't know. I don't want to say go back to. Now I'm just in this mixy feeling of saying going back to normal, going
Right.
forward. When things
Yeah.
move forward, that will put you in a different position, and then you would have the knowledge to teach someone else who may go through the similar crisis in 30 years, 20 years, whatever the years may be for this crisis to come up. So
So one of the conferences I'm doing has a tagline, and I want you to hang on to this tagline because it will help you in your struggle of where we're headed.
yeah.
So the tagline is, let's not go back to normal, let's go back to better.
Let's go back to better
Right.
before things
Right.
get worse.
Yeah, yeah. Let's not go back to normal.
Yeah.
Let's go back to better.
Yeah.
Because I really do. I want everybody to start thinking about how can I go back to something that's better than it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And so being realistic about our goals, and what we desire to do is something that I think I read in a book. I don't know if it was a 7 Habits of Highly Effective People or what, but he was saying be realistic. So you, like you were saying, you talked to your financial advisor, and he was like, well, that's not a realistic thing that you could do there. And I feel like the unrealistic or the expectations that we put on ourselves that's not realistic, it sets us up for failure, and then we lose our hope. And I was talking to Dr. Lulu yesterday about teen suicide, but one thing that she mentioned was that when people go through depression and they lose their hope, right? And it may be, like they need this medication, they need this, they need that, but really they're sad because they lost their job. They need a job, so right. A lot of people have to figure out why they lost their hope. Like, where's your hope at, right?
Oh, you're bringing up so you brought up two really good points. I'll touch on the first one quickly. So what you were referring to is what is called SMART goals, and that's an acronym, right? It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time. Right. So if you create, everybody should have goals. I agree. Only, believe it or not, only 3%. Get this now. Here's a great stat for your audience. Only 3% of the country has goals.
Wow.
And get this now. That 3% makes more than the other 97% combined.
Wow.
So do you think it makes sense to maybe have goals?
Yes.
Right.
Definitely.
So that's the first thing you touched on. The second thing you touched on is I'm depressed because I don't have a job. I just need a job. I challenge that thought, that mindset a little bit, because here's how I challenge it. Everybody thinks they want to be happy. And look, I got nothing against happy. I like being happy. Happy is good. When my team wins the game, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
However, happy is external and it's temporary, right? So just like when the Super Bowl champion wins, they're happy really briefly, and then you know what they're thinking about? The next season, right? Okay. So what I would say to the audience when they say, "Hey, I just need a job. I'm depressed because I don't have a job, or I'm depressed because this person left me, or I'm depressed because this happened," be very, very careful, because what you're doing is you're hanging your happiness on something external. What we have to do is we have to bring that inside. It's called joy. Yeah. So the joy is inside of us. We have to create joy. Joy is how I am internally, and that's done again by how I transform, i.e. reading, hearing, seeing, again, going back to that. Because now if I have joy, now don't get me wrong, if I lose my job or if I lose business, that I'm still unhappy about that. Yeah. But they can't steal my joy. And I want everybody here to know we have the ability to have internal joy, so that when external things happen to us, we can internally still be joyful. Believe it or not, the Bible talks about this in Philippians 4:8, where Paul says, think about these things, and he talks about all these things that are good for us and happy and joyful, and all that. And if you do nothing else but read that every day, right? Want to be joyful. You want, and that's so important for what we're going through right now, because you're right. Suicides are going to go up. Domestic abuse is going to go up. A lot of things that are negative are going to be exacerbated, but that's because they're being done by people who don't have that joy.
Right. And that's a dangerous thing when you don't have joy, and you're just think about it, Ralph. Do you remember a day when you didn't have joy, or when you felt down? Like, was it, I know it wasn't beneficial, but like even in business, can you tell me about like a day when, you may have, you had a show coming up and things weren't going the way you expected? Like, what was that like? What was the feeling like?
I can tell you exactly when it was. It was in April of 2015, when a executive forum I had producing for 2 years for a company down in Atlanta. The company had just gotten purchased by another company, and the company who purchased them didn't think the forum was in line with what they wanted or needed. So they actually they stopped the forum. They we call it going dark, right? Yeah. And so So even though it had been successful, even though we had wonderful experiences and history, the purchasing company just didn't feel like it was in line with what they wanted to do. And look, they owned the company, so they could make whatever decision they wanted to. But I can
Right.
tell you, when they came to me and said, we're no longer doing this forum, that was one of the darkest days in my professional life, because I
Wow.
remember it was like getting punched in the gut.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it took me, I mean, it did. It took me a little while to get over that. And I did have to draw on all of this stuff that you and I are talking about right now.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, it was getting knocked down onto the canvas that
Mhm.
caused me to say, you know what, I can't let that happen again. And
Yeah.
so I did some things going forward. And that was in 2015.
Mhm.
2016, I rebuilt from there. And 2017 ended up being my best year ever. And
Wow.
I believe that a part of that is because of what happened to me in
Mhm.
2015.
Wow. So there's always a golden nugget somewhere in our stories of trials and tribulation, I believe, like
Sure.
even the story of Jesus, and there's a sad story, but there's also a golden nugget in there, so you're able to go through that, and you said you rebuild, right? So that means that you took the rubbish, and you took everything that kind of fell apart, maybe even, and you took the broken pieces of yourself as well, because before you rebuild the business, you got to rebuild yourself, because you went through something traumatic
Sure.
as them going dark, and that messes up your business. So I think that's just something for us to take away from, is it's okay to rebuild. It's okay to have to rebuild. A lot of people may be afraid to rebuild their businesses because it failed, or they're not making sales, they're not getting called, so how do you handle the no's, like, the
Oh,
your business? How do you handle the no's?
well, the way I handle it is they're not saying no to me personally, right? I mean,
Mhm.
and so I really don't take it personally, and
Yeah.
and it takes time, right? I mean, when I
Mhm.
first started out, you want everybody to like you. We all have a need for approval. We all have a fear of rejection, and so it is hard, and so for a while you're going to struggle with that, because you haven't done a good job of qualifying who really is the people that should be saying yes, first of all. And
Right.
so I
That's
mean,
good.
if you're breathing involuntarily, you're a prospect, right?
Right. Right.
But
Right.
the reality of it is that's just not true. So
Yeah.
so so it's almost like a multifaceted answer where I have to be better at who I am and who I'm going after,
Mhm.
and qualifying and disqualifying before I can take people saying no to me personally. Because
Right.
to be honest with you, the reality of it is, with few exceptions, unless you're in a real commodity business,
Mhm.
um, most of the people don't need what you have.
Yeah.
Uh, and so you are going to hear a lot of no's, because
Mhm.
the simple fact is that's true. They really don't need it. So you have
Yeah.
to kind of get through that, and
Mhm.
so yeah, I would say you just have to learn how to do that. And then at the end of the day, you have to determine where you're getting your okayness from, right? If I'm getting
Right.
my okayness from somebody saying yes or no to doing business with me, I
Mhm.
probably need to rethink who I am inside,
Yeah.
uh, because
Mm.
that's probably not the right place for that to be coming from. And
Yeah.
then if I'm not, and then if I'm not getting any yeses, then obviously I
Mhm.
need to rethink how, what product and service I have and what I'm selling, and how well am I selling that, and if I need to get some help, as
Yeah.
far as that's concerned. But how I
Yeah.
handle the nose is, at the end of the day, I don't take it personally. And if it was a
Mm.
truly qualified prospect who said no, I just chalk it up to, it's not a no forever. It's just a no for
Right.
now.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. I love that. I love that, Ralph. Because who are you qualifying to tell you no? Like,
Right.
you could go around and say, well, I asked so and so if they want to do business. I asked this person, but did you just ask them because they're in the industry that you want to go into, or they're a customer that you want, or is it someone that you want to work with, and someone that you could actually, like? Are you going to just Oprah Winfrey and say, "Hey, Oprah, I have this production company,
Right.
and then Oprah wants to know, like, okay, what have you done, in the past?" And you're like, "Well, I just started, but I want you to come on, So it's like you got to go through that process, and you got to be okay with yourself inside, so that when people do tell you no, like you said, they're not telling you no, they're telling the package no. And before I go into questions here, working sales taught me a lot. I used to work at Men's Warehouse in a store called Buckle, and I also used to work in logistics. And I would call, let's say, General Mills, and I would call them and say, "Hey, General Mills, I'm so and so with this logistics company. Can I ship your freight?" And they're like, "No, we got all of it. We have trucks, we have this and that." And I'm just like, okay, and there were days where I was like sad and depressed because I wasn't getting any yeses. I got a whole lot of no's, and I got a whole lot of possibilities. Like, hey, hit me back in the fall, hit me back in the spring. So yes, exactly. Like, you have to be okay with yourself inside. I want to go over to the questions. We're at mark 45 minutes. This is good stuff right here. I like this. So I'm gonna go over here to see if we have any questions really quick. We're taking a brief. If you have any questions, please throw them up there for Ralph and I. We would love to hear from you. We have a lot of, let me see, I got to scroll through this. Big ideas come. Yeah, there a lot of them. Loving what you're saying. Big ideas come out of the crisis. Yes, sir. Mr. Victor Dura. Who do you want to become? Exactly. Let me see here. Resources. Let me see. Any questions? I'm going through where there's no challenge, there's no growth. Joy. It's just, I guess a lot of people are going on the things that we're saying, like, yes, I love that. Yeah, that's awesome. So I do have a question for you. Let me go over here to my question list. Man, a lot of the questions, like, you answered without even me asking you these questions, because the conversation was just so pure and awesome. You already answered the biggest failure question too. Oh, I have one, Ralph. I have an awesome question that I wanted to ask you. So, what do you wish you had known when you started out? Like, when you first started your business, what do you wish you knew then? And what would you tell yourself at this point, from this point?
Yeah, I love that question. So,
Yeah.
so here's when I started up this business. I'm a production company. I do trade shows, summits, forums. So I made the same mistake in the first couple of years I was in business that executives make today, that I help walk them through, and that is the assumption that what I do is a marketing function. Okay, everybody thinks that what I do falls into marketing. I mean, it on the surface, it kind of makes sense, right? I mean, you're doing trade shows. Well, geez, our marketing people does that. You're doing forums and summits. Well, if we do those, our marketing people do that.
Yeah.
Well, what I found out over the years was that, get this, 100% of the time in the first couple of years of my business that I got business, it actually came from the owners or the executives of the business. Never did it come from marketing. Because what I uncovered was marketing was challenged by what I do, and their defense, because they thought what I was doing was what they do. Now, here's what I uncovered after about 2 years, is that what I do is not marketing. What I do is not sales. What I do is business development. So I'm the bridge between marketing and sales, called business development, that a lot of companies don't do or don't understand. And so once I figured that out, I was then able to decide, well, I should never go through marketing, because actually marketing should actually work with business development, and business development should then work with sales. And so if I come in, I need to go to the executives or the sales area and talk to them about what I do. And then once we decide to do it, we then need to bring in marketing to enhance what we're doing. So if I could talk to myself when I first started up this business, I would say, look, you have to understand what you're doing is not a marketing function. It's a business development function. And because of that, you're not going to go through marketing to get business. You're going to go through the owners, the presidents, or the sales areas. And then once you do, then you will engage marketing to augment who you are and what you do to make this project successful. And I got to tell you, I would have been a lot further down the road if it wouldn't have taken me so long to learn that lesson.
Yeah. So so for us, we have to know what it is we actually do and how to or who to present it to, right? Our role. That's awesome.
Yeah, and you really do need to think about that because, one of the things I like to have fun with is I'll ask people in most companies, who's your ideal prospect? Who's your ideal client? If you could wave a magic wand and you could create the ideal of who you want to go after, who would that be? And I'll tell you, it's a lot harder than you think. And what's really powerful about that is one of the things I do in my business development function is I help them uncover who that is, because obviously I don't want marketing trying to heat the ocean. I want to go to marketing and say, I need you to specifically go to this area at this depth in this place and heat that place. It costs a lot less. We can be a lot more effective, a lot more impactful, and so that is something that I would just encourage everybody to think about, and and see if you can come up with the answer.
Yeah, that's awesome. The smart way to do things.
Right. Well, it's counterintuitive. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks marketing is just casting a net. Well, if you had unlimited money, unlimited resources, and unlimited time, I would sign up to that in a second. Unfortunately, most of us don't have unlimited time, money, and resources.
Yeah, exactly. I want the unlimited money part. But Jeffrey's asking, what's the biggest idea that you've come up with during the crisis?
Yeah, so the biggest idea I've come up with is producing virtual conferences, and really taking all those lessons that I've learned in the last 11 years of doing them live and understanding, because, again, if you do it well, it looks seamless. Like when people come to my conferences and summits, if I've done everything that I'm supposed to do really well, they will leave there thinking what I did was effortless.
Yeah.
Right? That's just the way it works. I tell all my technical people, the way you're going to get complimented is by silence. And what I mean by that is if nobody says anything to you, you did a great job.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I've learned is, bringing presenters on, like this very first virtual conference I'm doing. I have Dr. Jim Tompkins from Tompkins Associates. I have Chris Nathan, the CEO of SDI Industries. I have Craig Henry of Siemens Logistics. These are big companies. These are big people, right? So, but because I have 11 years of experience of dealing with executives at that level with live events, I can deal with these folks and I can help them with their presentations, and I can create the theme and I can create the vision. And I'm working with the technical folks to concatenate the run a show or the program. And so what I've learned is I can take a lot of the skills that I learned in 11 years doing something live and turning that into virtual. But what I've also learned is that there are a lot of things that because other people have done them well, I didn't realize, and I have to learn in order to do them well, so that when people attend one of my virtual events, they feel the same way they do when they attend one of my live events, and that is that it looked effortless.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, is this something that other people could watch, like the conference? Could people attend it, or do they have to be in the supply chain industry?
No, the good news is the first one's free.
Okay. First one's free, guys. Y'all heard that.
So I will give you that information when we put it together, and you can certainly feel free to send it to whoever you want. And they don't have to be in supply chain, because Dr. Tompkins is going to talk about that subject I brought up earlier called VUCA, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And he's a phenomenal speaker. I mean, really, really good. So if your audience only came in and listened to his talk, I promise you they will learn something and it will impact them.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely share that out once you send me that information so
Yeah,
that
my
they can do
pleasure.
it. I have a lot of people who would love to be in that because they're purposeful people who live with a purpose.
Yeah, no, and they should. And you know what? COVID-19 is only one ingredient of a lot of things that were going on. I mean, even before COVID-19, look, this country was going through obviously a wonderful growth, but in addition to that, labor was a challenge even before this. Now it's just the other way around. But before this, we were struggling with getting people and putting them in the right place. The other thing that was going on was all this disruptive technology. I mean, think about it. We've got augmented reality and artificial intelligence and big data and Internet of Things. I mean, it's amazing what's going on right now in this country, right? I mean, we order things online, and when we click submit, we wait for the doorbell to ring, for goodness sakes, right? So this volatility and uncertainty has been going on for a long time, and I think everybody should be aware of that, and then be aware of what we can do about it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys make sure you stay tuned to Mr. Ralph Henderson because he's doing things. I have his email here. If you have any questions or concerns, or you want to know more about what he does, and you want to support Ralph and what he's doing, I'm pretty sure he can use all the support. Is there anything, events or something that you want to let the people know of that's happening right now, or what do you have going on right now?
Yeah, I would say the other thing that I'm working on is an event called Queen City Leaders Summit. That one won't air until September, but the people that I'm working with, the keynote presenters are the Benham brothers, David and Jason Benham, and they are the Benham brothers of the Benham companies, and I would say that would be somebody that your audience probably needs to do some research on, and the reason for that is these are guys who in 2003 started up their business as entrepreneurs, and since then have had offices, over 100 offices all over the world. They've been very successful. They're doing a lot of things, and they are going to be the keynote speakers at a leadership conference that I'm producing. But your audience, I think if they would look them up, they would get some real benefit out of the stuff that they are currently doing right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I love the Benham brothers. They're awesome.
Yeah, good guys.
Leadership Breakfast is going to be amazing. I hope that September. I hope it's in person. I don't know. I hope that
it's not going to be. We've already decided it's going to be virtual because we want to start promoting it now, and we were concerned that if we made it live, people still aren't open to live stuff right now.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
we did decide to make it virtual. It will be on September the 30th at 8:30 to 11:30 to 1 o'clock. And it is queencityleaders.com is the website.
queencityleaders.com. And you don't have to be in the Queen City to be in this conference, thankfully, because it's virtual. So you could be anywhere in the world and attend Queen City Leadership Breakfast. That's awesome. Well, Mr. Ralph Henderson, I appreciate your time and thank you for being on the Purpose Pod. I am blessed to know you, and I look forward to growing with you, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure, Alan. And I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. Knowing your purpose is so important. And for everybody out there, I know that your purpose is to be successful. And here's what I want you to know, that there is a unique description for success for every person watching and listening to this. But let me challenge you with this definition. Success isn't comparing yourself to other people. Success is comparing yourself to what you were designed to do. And I believe if you'll find what you were designed to do, you will find your purpose and you will find success.
And that's what I hope all of our listeners would do, because I'm going to do it, and I'm going to put everything that you said. I'm going to re-listen to this because I had to sit in the chair to interview, but I want to be an audience and a listener too, because you dropped some knowledge today, and I really feel like if you're struggling with hope and you watch this, you should have hope right now. If you don't, you need to go back and rewatch this over and over and over again. Like Ralph said, you got to do things repetitively and repeat the process over and over until it becomes your reality, until it becomes real. So awesome sauce. Thank you, sir, Mr. Ralph Henderson of OmniChannel Productions. I appreciate you so much, brother.
My pleasure.
All right. This has been another episode of The Purpose Pod. I really enjoyed Mr. Ralph Henderson. I really enjoyed it. It was awesome. It was amazing. Oh, God, the jewels, the gems, the diamonds, everything falling from the sky. Knowledge is power, folks. So apply what you learned today. Please apply it. Do not leave this podcast. Do not leave this video without having a plan and putting your plan to action. This is The Purpose Pod. I'm Alan Levi Simmons. This is Never Stop, Never Quit, Repeat, and live your life to the fullest. Follow Mr. Ralph Henderson and stay tuned for what he's doing in this world. Peace.